Welcome to the Sunday Million Highlight Show. This one from the 15th of February 2015. 6,658 runners generating a whopping $1.3 million plus prize pool and earned first prize in excess of $200,000. And we've got a big chip leader as we start our final table. Reporter Leone with 24 million in chips. That is a huge chip stack right now. You can see the others between 8 and 2 million. But getting to the finish line is tough at these final tables, as if you're a regular watcher, you will know. We'll see how Reporter Leone does with all those chips, and we'll also see how it affects the other players. Interesting dynamic at a final table. You have one big chip stack. 100,000, 200,000 are the blinds, and M1 Ron will get us underway by shoving pocket nines, which seems pretty reasonable to me for 12 big blinds. He is the short stack right now. Very experienced tournament player, nearly $500,000 in cashes. So knows his way around a pair of nines. Don't know what that means, but he probably does. Christmas come early for 4NN, who won his way into the Sunday Million via a $7 satellite. Imagine that. Now guaranteed over $10,000, and obviously a shot at a six-figure payday. In a great spot here, trouble for M1 Ron. Needs to get lucky to stay alive in only the second hand at the final table. I'd say that qualifies as getting lucky. Nine of spades, right how he dreamed it on the flop. Just sweating a king on the river, which doesn't arrive, and a full house for M1 Ron. What an amazing start to the final table for him. You come in as the short stack. You're hoping to get your money in good, but if you can't, you'll settle for getting lucky. He's right back in this thing now. Well, the kings didn't work, so maybe the jacks will for 4NN. Sadly, he hasn't read the memo. There is no correct way to play pocket jacks. Abandon hope, all ye who enter. Oh, they look attractive, but only trouble lies that way. I mean, you can't just fold, can you? But it's a problem no one solved. One of my favourite moments in poker in recent years was when Phil Ivers at the final table of the World Series, and he butchered pocket jacks. Not that he necessarily butchered them or anything like that, but he lost. He folded when he had pocket jacks, and the other player had pocket sevens, and he folded pre-flop. And the reason that was so enjoyable is it just made us all feel much more reassured that it's not just us that can't play pocket jacks. M1 Ron is going to shove with pocket eights here, and again runs into a bigger pocket pair. That's pretty unlucky. He's got to repeat the trick 20% of the time times 2. And no luck so far for M1 Ron. Doesn't have a spade either. And this time not so lucky. So he tries the smaller pair against big pair. That's not what he was trying, was it? But that's what he needed to do. Flip those odds twice in a row. Couldn't get it done. And he's not out yet. Just a few chips left. 29,000 is good for about an eighth of a big blind. And I would say we've seen people come back from worse to win a tournament, but I don't think I have seen somebody come back from an eighth of a big blind. Tough to do. Super Mix 777 is your opening raiser in this one. M1 Ron probably a little bit disgusted by running into a bigger pair twice, which is very unlucky. Making a couple of reasonably standard shoves and running into them twice. Sticks the rest in. He'll get the happy news that he's dominated. You can't have 7-8 suited. You've got to have a jack. He used to catch a 9 or a heart flush or some kind of funky straight. Well, the funky straight's in play. Any 10 will do. 9 also working for him. And backdoor hearts. He's been in tougher spots than this. Surely. There you go. The road to redemption starts with the first step. I'm sure I read that somewhere. Probably in religious text. M1 Ron takes it down, and his situation's improved. Not massively so, but he's still here and gets to shove again, scaling that long ladder of hope out into the light that is more than one big blind. If he can double up here, he'll be in the sacred land of pushing 2 big blinds. And one on with the ace deuce suited, which is obviously a pretty nice hand as well to be in short stack with. Ice B with pocket nines on the button, you'd imagine would be the player to try and bust him this time around. Ice B, who's a pretty experienced tournament player with 6 5-figure cashes. He has a 5-figure cash just for being here. All 9 players have locked up 5 figures for a $200 buy-in or less. And Ice B will isolate here. See what I did there? Aren't puns tremendous? M1 Ron with the ace working, rocking the 33% to try and get back into this Sunday Million after quite the adventure. Needs to win this one and probably win another one. Well, he might win this one. Ace on the flop is exactly what the doctor ordered. And just needs to fade a 9 on the river, which he does. And from an 1/8 of a big blind, he's out up to about 3.5 big blinds. Chip rich. On we go. Your short stack is still M1 Ron. I hope you're enjoying our coverage of his titanic struggle to get back to relevance. It's a bit like my broadcasting career. Just never quite there. For an N, Ivan. It's definitely the time and place for a bit of in-depth introspection, isn't it? This commentary on the Sunday Million highlight show. M1 Ron again with the short stack decision. But your chip leader will get involved here. Our Portaleone from Brazil, just sitting tight through the first 13 hands, now decides to make a play. His timing is good, but he is going to be up against the short stack. And M1 Ron's going to get it in a really nice spot here. Actually has the best hand. 2.5 million in the middle. That's a sweet flop for him as well. Makes top pair. He's going to win his 3rd all-in pot in a row here, I think. And that takes him back to, well, just a smidge under 10 big blinds. Remarkable stuff. Never give up is the motto. This is hand 15. And your chip leader, Portaleone, will raise and get shoved on by Sanjizzi with the pocket nines. Pocket nines are very fashionable right now, aren't they? Pretty standard shove, and he's a little bit unlucky that Portaleone's quite as strong as he is. Big chip leader's probably opening worse hands than that from that position. But we're going to have a classic race, I think. Ravenelli 7 with a sort of okay hand in a different setup, not in this one. And our Portaleone will. Cool. So we're going to race for Sanchez's life. And it doesn't look like it's going to go well for the Chilean player. Well, he can catch a 10 now, so 9 or a 10 would keep him alive on this river. Otherwise, he's done, and 9 it is. Well, I guess he could argue went in with the best hand, came out with the best hand. Just did it in dramatic fashion, up to 6.5 million now. And that trims the wings of our Portaleone a little bit, under 20 million for the first time at this final table. Our short stack hero, M1 Ron, will try and keep it going. He's going to have to get lucky, though. The worst feeling in tournament poker trademark I've described this as when you shove and the person immediately to your left instantly shoves over the top. It really is. Doesn't matter whether it's online or live. It is the worst feeling in tournament poker, especially when they don't even think. I don't even have to think about it. I've obviously got a monster. M1 Ron struggling here, but still alive. We've seen him get out of worse. He's going to keep it going. 8 on the flop. Makes him a big favourite to double up again. What a run this is if he can get this home. And what a lesson if you're ever sitting there on very few chips to never give up. A spade would be disaster for him, but he avoids that, avoids the king, and his aces and eights will win the day. 5 million now. When we're on, I can remember the days when he had about 3 chips. Wasn't even that long ago. We've only played 19 hands at this final table and already an emotional roller coaster. M1 Ron from the Ukraine. He's not even the short stack anymore. Look at that. Our Portaglione still the big chip lead, and he would chip back up to over 20 million. And we would finally have our first elimination. Mr. Longhit from Denmark would bust in 9th for 10,300 and leave us with these 8 players, all with over $15,000 locked up, all eyeing that $200,000 first prize. Ridiculous prize money, isn't it? Every single week in the Sunday Million. Hope you're getting involved. If you'd like to, remember satellites run pretty much round the clock. You get in for not very much money at all. As 4N ended in seat 2 here at this final table for just $7. Ice B has opened here. Our Portaglione has flat called with the ace queen. Nice spot for our Portaglione. Has Ice B obviously covered in chips as the chip leader. Not to know he has him hand dominated as well, but cutoff versus button. Ace queen is likely to be a million miles ahead of Ice B's opening range. Ice B thinking about this one. It's it's sort of a tough spot, isn't it? Because it's very hard for him to get Portaglione to believe he has anything here. He's open from a steal position. He's got a board which connects with absolutely nothing. And it is a horrible feeling when you're in this box. You think, well, I should continuation bet. He might give up. I mean, I know he's not going to give up, but he might. Anyway, he didn't. King on the turn for Ice B. And not only is it a nice scare card to represent, it also gives him a straight draw. Portaglione has a straight draw as well. And Ice B will check. I think chip stacks come into play as well. Ice B might be a little bit cautious, thinking, well, I'm second in chips. Do I really need to go to war here against the one guy that can bust me? Another reason it's such a good spot for Portaglione here. Portaglione thinking about it, probably thinking getting check raised would suck. So let's just check behind, probably winning. Definitely winning now. Broadway for our chip leader. Ice B makes a pair of tens to go with the jacks on the board. And we'll think about betting it. There's just under 3 million in the middle. And check's good. And it's actually run out pretty unpleasantly for Ice B because I think he's going to have to pay off this bet. He has checked twice, look weak, and he's got to think Portaglione's going to be induced to bluff there a decent amount, or even value bet a worse hand sometimes. Ice B does call, and gets the bad news that Portaglione made Broadway on the river, and he'll take it down, increase his chip lead. Ice B still reasonably healthy, but the stacks are pretty congested now. We're playing 150, 300,000. And a whole bunch of players around about the 20 big blind mark. Couple underneath, couple over. Ravanelli 7 is actually the short stack. And he's going to get the money in here, I think, versus one of the other short stacks, Super Mix. So a classic race, a big race for both these players. Ravanelli will be out if his jacks don't hold. Super Mix will be crippled if the ace-queen doesn't win. And it's a great flop for Ravanelli. Super Mix needs to catch Broadway here. Ravanelli with a dream flop, screaming at these jacks to hold. Doesn't want to see a king. Supermix needs exactly that to get out of this and make Broadway. Queen won't get it done. Ravanelli 7 with a big, big hand for him and a dream flop. He doubles up to nearly 10 million. Supermix left crippled by that one, but he'll no doubt be inspired by what he's seen across the felt from him with M1 Ron coming back from way worse. This is just a flesh wound in the world of M1 Ron. 2 big blinds, you're swimming in chips. Why are you even worried? Supermix will shove with Jack 10 and the aforementioned 2 big blinds. And Ravanelli will call with pretty decent looking A6 suited. Petty 25 will also call out of the big blind, getting great odds to do that. And Supermix is 3 ways and needs to win this one. Doesn't look like it's going to happen for him. Ace on the flop for Ravanelli. Pretty much shuts him out. Needs running cards to stay alive here, does Supermix. The other two will check it down. Wouldn't be surprised to see Ravanelli bet this turn and see if he can get a little bit of value here. He knows that he's almost certainly got the best hand. And is a little bit of value. Just a tickler. Little 900,000. See if Petty's got a 9 or a 5 or something. But he does not. And Supermix will get the bad news that his Sunday Million race is run. But it was worth running. $15,979 for him and an 8th place finish. And we're left 7-handed in the million where the blinds are up. 200,000, 400,000 here in hand. 79. Action folded round to the blinds. And 2 of our bigger stacks will go at it again. Ice B, your 3rd place man or lady against Portaleone, who is the chip leader, and will have no limping. How dare you limp my big blind? You disgust me. Probably doesn't disgust him, probably likes it. Chance to put the pressure on and whatnot. Ice B will not give it up though, and they'll see a flop. And it's a nice flop for Ice B. Nice flop because he hits top pair, but also because Portaleone's going to be more inclined to bluff at this kind of flop. It's a win-win for him. Portaleone with the decision. 2.5 million in the middle. And he'd expect a bet, and there it is. Just takes a while to type out that very specific number. A shade under $1 million. Can't imagine there's too much value in Ice B raising here on this kind of board. He will just call and hope that Portaleone keeps bluffing at it. Interesting card, isn't it? Because Portaleone will make the open-ended straight on the turn here, which gives him options. He could view that he's not getting many folds on this turn and just take the free card. Or if he thinks he can get Ice B to fold some of the hands he called with on the flop, you might see a second bullet here. It is, after all, 5 high. Kind of tough to win with 5 high if you don't bet, I guess. 4.5 million in the middle. And there is the bet, a sturdy one, 2.1 million. This is getting increasingly tough for Ice B. Yes, he has top pair. Yes, he almost certainly has the best hand. There's a lot of pressure on him. The money jumps are really substantial, and he's playing against one of the few players at this table that can bust him. He's going to call. He's not going to like calling the river if he has to put the rest of his chips in. Well, what happens now? This is a really fascinating spot. Portaleone with 5 high knows he can't win by checking. It's not a great card to bluff. If he does try it, he's just trying to strong arm Ice B into throwing his hand away. It's one of those decisions that kind of looks easy. You kind of go, well, you got top pair. How can you do anything other than call? But he's not going to have to make it. I don't think Ice B would have folded down. I think the decision was probably on the turn. And Portaleone thinks better off continuing the bluff. Well, if you'd like to be playing for huge money at the Sunday Million final table, we'd like to give you a free shot at getting there. Follow the on-screen instructions to find our free roll, and then you just need to enter your password, which this week is Nut Flush, all lowercase, all one word, Nut Flush. The free roll goes down on the 19th of February, 3:35 Eastern Standard Time, and there is a free Sunday Million seat up for grabs. It's completely free. Cannot make it any cheaper, and this is one you will not want to miss. The Sunday Million 9th anniversary party features a $9 million guaranteed prize pool and a minimum of $1 million for the winner. That happens on March the 8th. Put it in your diary right now. You are going to want to be involved. Someone's going to walk away with at least $1 million for playing a Sunday Million in a night. How about that? Good time to run good, I'd suggest. March the 8th for that one. We will bring you the highlights of it. And meanwhile, let's get back into the action for this one. Hand 87 and Petty 25 has found a really nice hand to shove with. Unfortunately, doesn't have a super large chip stack, but this could be the road to getting back into this. He does get called by worse. Portaglione with the worse ace. 75% of the time, Petty's going to double up here. Slightly better than double up with the dead money in the pot. But 25% of the time, he's going to smash his mouse into his desk and walk off disgusted. And it could be part of that 25% unless he can find a king or a 10 on the river. Six of diamonds won't get it done. Petty 25, unlucky to go out on that final hand. He got short stacked. And you are then at the mercy of the dealer. Unlucky for Petty 25. Great run through the tournament. $29,295 for 7th place. And he leaves us playing 6 max at the Sunday Million final table. Portaglione having feathered his nest a bit there with that elimination. Back up to nearly 20 million, over 20 million at the start of the hand. And our short stack hero, M1 Ron, will shove. And he's going to have to upset the odds again here. He's done this once with a worse ace. Needs to do it again or he will finally be out the Sunday Million. The Rasputin of this Sunday Million final table, who would not die, is now 1 card away for elimination. And he can't wriggle free of the noose this time. M1 Ron is out in 6th, but it looked like he was going to be out in 9th with just 1/8 of a big blind. What a comeback that was. And that comeback actually made him over $30,000. He finishes with 42k for 6th instead of 10k for 9th. That was fun to watch. And what a great run for him. 5 left then, 250, 500,000 are the blinds. Sangizi has made it 1.15. Ravanelli has flat called here, which is surprising. Kind of expect him to shove or fold with that kind of stack. Decided to flat call. Now has, well, that's pretty close to gin, isn't it? Certainly a very good flop for him with the nut flush draw and 2 overs. Not a bad flop for a pair of 4s either. And you'd imagine money will be going in on this flop. Ravanelli 7 will flat call again. Just 3 million behind, and this is the key. So you want to wait till you're in front and then put your money in. No, check again. Sangizi, the pair of 4s, is now in a weird spot because his opponent has 3 million left. He must have been expecting to either get shoved on or get a fold. And now it goes check, check. So this is a slightly odd hand. It gets really funky on the river. This hand brought to you by #HilariouShands. Ravanelli makes the nut flush draw. It's not going to be hilarious for Ravanelli. It's going to be disastrous. Sangizi with the full house. Just needs to make sure Ravanelli gets his last 700,000 in. Ravanelli will think, I've played this like a genius, and those good vibes will be transformed to vibes of feeling ill. Immediately he sees that Sangizi made the full house on the river. What a bizarre hand that was. It sees the exit of Ravanelli 7 from Portugal. Fantastic run through this tournament. But it ends in 5th with 55k, and it leaves these 4 players who I can tell you would do a chop. As soon as it went down to 4, they discussed the numbers and decided to carve up the bulk of the prize money. You can't blame them. The money jump's getting really big as ever at the end of the million. I'll confirm what each player made as they bust out in time-honoured fashion. But they're still playing for a big chunk of change and the Sunday Million title. And the question is, can anyone separate that title from Portaglione's grasp? Has been the chip leader throughout the final table, goes into 4-handed play, still has a decent-sized chip leader. And has a nice hand here with ace-queen. Ice B with, well, 3rd place chips. Pretty workable stack. Decides that shoving is the best route here. And I guess these decisions simplified by doing the deal a little bit. Whether they would have played this the same way before the deal, we don't know. But we are in a classic race, and it's a big one for Ice B from the UK. Needs these 7s to hold. He's got a good flop for them. Portaglione with chances. Ice B the all-in player. Jack brings more out, so Portaglione wants to see a big card on this river. And a Jack will do it. The 7s get counterfeited and Ice B gets eliminated. So 4th place for him, and he's the beneficiary of the deal. He would have earned 73k without a deal. With the deal, he earns 130,000. So makes nearly, oh, what is that? Another 50k plus. for doing the deal. Nice timing from Ice B. He leaves us three-handed, and he leaves us with 4NN shoving on San Jizzy. Sixes versus queens. Sixes don't usually do well in this spot, I can tell you, as a student of poker history. And they especially don't do well when the queens flop a full house. 4NN with a fantastic run through this tournament. As I told you earlier, just a $7 satellite it took him to get here, and he's turned that into $98,000. What a result for the Canadian player as he finishes in third and leaves us with these two players in the heads up. San Jizzy versus our Portiglione. 40 million plays 26 million. That gap would widen slightly over the first few hands of the heads up. Our Portiglione has accomplished his mission. I do think there's a little bit of pressure for those players that come into a final table as the big chip leader, because you sort of expect to win it yourself, but it can so easily go wrong. I mean, it hasn't gone wrong for Portiglione. Worst he can finish is second now. And so sort of mission accomplished for him. We haven't seen these two tangle in this highlight show. Doesn't mean they haven't played against each other either in the other hands at the final table or earlier in the tournament. We'll see how they both want to play the heads up. Both flop a six here. And bet and a call on the flop. Big card on the turn might just freeze this up a little bit. San Jizzy may think there's no value here and just try and get to showdown. That's what happened so far. He does check it back on the turn. And makes a nice looking two pair on the river. And he might get paid here. It always looks so dodgy when you check the turn and bet the river. Portiglione may decide to look him up. Also getting a nice price on it as well. 2.4 to win a 7.3 million chip pot. And Portiglione decides to check raise. Interesting. San Jizzy with two pair will be trying to work this one out. Check, it went on the turn. Check raise on the river. And that's one of those situations San Jizzy as well. I've got two pair. I'm getting a price. I can't possibly be losing, can I? Well, the good news is you're not. So Portiglione deciding to turn his one pair hand into a bluff on the river and getting it picked off. And that reversed the chip lead momentarily. Portiglione would get it back, though, for the next few hands. Very close in chips as we watch hand 117. Portiglione with the best hand here. San Jizzy flopping not very much. Hey, backdoor straight draws aren't nothing. With the four high, gets called by Portiglione. And you see, backdoor straight draws ain't nothing. They're a real thing. San Jizzy now open-ended. And similar situation to a hand we had earlier where it's not a great card to bluff, but by the same token, you have picked up some equity and it's tough to win with four high. San Jizzy will try and strong arm this one. Portiglione playing the ace high out of position. It's not easy. He will call, and this pot has got significant, nearly 11 million in it, and a blank on the river. San Jizzy with the decision. Can he get Portiglione off his hand? We can see that a bluff would work most of the time here, and he does have the courage to pull the trigger on this one. 6 million on the river. Portiglione's a non-believer, and he's right. Well, what a fun hand that was. San Jizzy bluffing all the way. Portiglione with not a strong hand manages to pick him off. And looks to be reading his opponent really well from that one. Gives him a decent-sized chip lead now. 39 plays 24. As we hit hand 133 at our final table. And Portiglione flops the world here. It's a fun flop, isn't it? Portiglione flops the straight. San Jizzy flops the nut flush. And we could see real fireworks here, depending on how they play it. Could see the end of the tournament, of course. Just depends how fast San Jizzy's going to play his flush draw. They've been playing reasonably aggressively, to say the least, as you've seen. But Portiglione will slow play here and decide to just call. And San Jizzy gets immediate service on the turn. horrible card for Paul Leone. He'll think he's got his man absolutely strangled here. But we can see differently. Sanchez bets 1.8. Paul Leone will just flat call. 8.6 million in the pot here. It could have gone very differently if Paul Leone check raised the flop. Could be a much, much bigger pot. Eight of spades pairs the board. I don't know if it's going to stop Sanchez from value betting, though. Has a monstrous hand heads up, and he does bet 4.8. Paul Leone's in a really weird spot here. Has to call, I guess. And he's going to get the bad news that he was outrun on the turn. The good news is that it could have easily all gone in on the flop, and he'd be in a much worse spot now. As it is, he has lost the chip lead, but they're still pretty even. 35 plays just under 30. Hand 165. This would be quite the heads-up duel between these two. The fact that they've done a deal hasn't lessened their desire to finish first, get that Sunday Million title, and of course the extra prize money for first. Ace high for both of them in hand 165. Paul Leone checks, and Sanchez bets around about half the pot. Quick call from Paul Leone. We've already seen he's not afraid to call off all three streets with ace high if he thinks he's being bluffed. Not a massive incentive for Sanchez to bet this turn, though, is there? Not sure he's getting too much to fold that he is currently beaten by, but he does decide to fire away. Paul Leone will call again. And again, we're in the similar situation of, does Sanchez bluff the river? Hard for him to represent too much. There just aren't too many hands he can just fire with. And you'd imagine that Paul Leone is going to stick to his read until given evidence otherwise that this guy is going to fire away. Sanchez can feel a little bit unlucky there that he was out-kicked. But Paul Leone is just a non-believer. We'll see if that dynamic changes. Hand 169, Sanchez raises with a nice connecting hand on the button. Paul Leone with a real hand in the big blind, pocket 10. Hope you're enjoying this little bit of heads-up action. We don't always get a ton of heads-up at the end of the million, so this is fun. Fascinating as well, Sanchez and Paul Leone both prepared to make moves. Paul Leone 3 bets. And Sanchez thinking about this one. It'll cost him 2 million, or he can do that. There's the 4 bet, and you'd imagine heads up against this opponent, Paul Leone's going to be delighted to get it in with 10s here. He is. Well, I don't know that he is. I imagine he's pretty delighted. It's one of those weird things where, do you actually want to fold, or do you want to call? I think with 10s he wants a call, right? If you could see Sanchez's cards, he'd definitely want to call. But he's not going to call off 20 million with 9 high, and this one ends with Paul Leone making the all-in and getting the fold. And 2-1 chip lead now. The first time I think we've had that in this heads-up match that we've seen. Hand 173 sees Sanchez with ace-king on the button. Paul Leone with 10-7. And outrunning the ace-king on the flop. And so far we've seen Paul Leone take a check-call line with a huge range of his hands. So hard to imagine he'd do anything differently here. Sanchez has a pretty nice hand as well, doesn't he? 2 overcards and the gut shot straight draw. Any big card improves his hand. That improves Paul Leone's hand. 2 pair for him on the turn. But still no variation in his line. He's happy to let Sanchez keep bluffing or keep firing. Sanchez decides not to, and he'll try and improve on the river. 2 of spades isn't going to get that mission accomplished, though. Pretty much a blank. Now, does Paul Leone bet for value here, or does he hope that Sanchez can't resist a bluff? Now, he does try and get paid. He might get paid as well. Lots of draws that didn't come in on this very, very blank river. Sanchez with ace high. And he decides to shove, and this one I think is going to be over. Sanjizzi making a real power move on the river, but his timing's off. Portaleone with his 2-pair presses the call button and starts running round the room because he is the Sunday Million champion. Well, what a fun heads-up match that was, but Portaleone came into the final table as the big chip leader and gets the victory. He is your pillar-to-post winner of the Sunday Million. $166,000 for him after the deal. And Sanjizzi, who gave us a really entertaining heads-up match, takes home $136K after that deal. I hope you enjoyed that. A really, really fun heads-up encounter. Both players prepared to make moves. That's what it's all about. If you've got that in you, we'd love to see you at a Sunday Million final table. We'll bring you the next one next week. For everyone at PokerStars.tv, I'm Nick Wealthall. Take big care.